Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show I have Tina Lombard out of Denver, Colorado, mortgage loan officer for over 33 years. Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I like to start off at the top by asking folks, how did they get into the real estate entrepreneurial space on the loan officer side? How did you get into that space?
Well, when I graduated, I wanted to be a business mogul, but I actually started off as a stockbroker, my first job out of college. I did that for a while, then I got into banking when I got sick of stockbroking, and it just seemed like a lot of the mortgage loan officers and the processors were making way more money than me, even though I had several degrees and a whole bunch of certifications. Processors were making more than me. So at that time, I did seek out a mortgage company, or they sought me out, and I jumped into it, and I never looked back. I so much enjoyed it. It seems to pay all the bills and then some. But I stuck to it, and I've just been doing it all these years, and I love it.
And so I've actually had quite a few people who've made this exact move from stockbroker to mortgage broker, from stockbroker to real estate agent, and then real estate broker, or in stockbroker to investor, so on and so forth. Were you based out of New York when you were a stockbroker?
No, I was based out of Seattle. Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah, there is a NASDAQ in Seattle that we did a lot of our trading on.
And so when you left school, stockbroker, I've spoken with a number of people who thought, they were going to go in and they were going to do analysis and be able to tell people, hey, you should look into this stock. But a lot of people, I've gotten the feedback where it was basically they were calling people on lists and more or less saying, get this, but they weren't doing the analysis portion. And so they didn't love that. What was your experience like as a stockbroker?
Well, as a stockbroker, it was a gamble. Let me tell you, that is one of the riskiest, actually one of the riskiest jobs ever, both stressful. But you would buy leads. You would buy, this is like 1989, 1990. We were buying leads for $5 a name. And right now that's still expensive. But you'd go down the list and you'd say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and would you like to make some money if I can show you how? That was our opening line. And people, we had a gamblers list. We had people who gambled, or they actually did buy stocks and bonds, and they'd say, yeah. And I say, okay, I'll save some information. So we would, snail mail, we would send them information, and they would open it up. They would call them up and say, hey, we've got a company, DDI, their stock is opening up at so-and-so, and with $50,000, we can get you how many stocks. And people would buy just like that. And it was really frightening. I was the only female in a branch of 25 men. Then I was the only Black person in a branch of 25, an Asian person, whatever. And it was very, very back in those days. There was no sexual harassment laws. There was no discrimination laws. There was nothing. So it was really, really, really frightful. I was making a lot of money. I mean, we closed $10,000. I'd close $10,000 a day, $5,000 a day. If I closed $2,500 a day, that was just an average day, what have you. So we were making a lot of money, but we watched the stocks go up. We watched the stocks go down. We were dealing with dollar stocks and penny stocks, and it was very, very stressful. And when my friends and family started trying to buy from me, I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm not handling any stress of, giving people stock and then it goes down. And, so for me, it was extremely stressful. I mean, I could either be dancing on tables or selling stocks. For me, it was the same ethical thing. And so I said, I can't, I don't want to dance on tables. I don't want to sell stocks. If God struck me with lightning, I would go straight to hell. So I had a come to Jesus moment, and I said, hey, I need to go into something where I feel good about my soul. And so I went into banking, and, I got paid pennies to what I was making as a stockbroker. But I was able to get up in the morning and not be stressed out. None of my friends or family were mad at me because I sold them something crazy. So I just started my career doing banking that way. But stockbroking was just like that movie, Wolf of Wall Street in the
love that
80s.
movie. Yeah.
That wasn't even a joke. I mean, I watched it and I cried. It wasn't even, I mean, it seems funny on the big screen, but it was that bad. I can't tell you the war stories I had, but it was just like that. It was a documentary. That wasn't a movie.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
I believe it. I 100% believe it. Do you know what the status of that industry is like today? I can't imagine that there's people cold calling people like they were back then. So what's the industry like today?
Well, the industry, you could call. There's a time where people could call like Charles Schwab, or Fidelity, and they can buy their own stocks and bonds and do their own self-management. But now you've got wealth management people who actually can advise on 401ks and products in the market. A lot of people are doing the Bitcoin. They're doing the Red Robins. They're going out there doing their own. So we have information in the palm of our hand with our cell phones that only stockbrokers had access to back then. So when I was I would watch the ticker, all day long. We would have stocks and bonds. We'd do all the analyzing. We wouldn't sell a stock unless we knew, the profits, the REI, just everything, return on equity, everything, balance sheets, the background of the CEOs. And now you can get that at the palm of your hand. And you can do your own self-infliction if you want on your phone. And there's some people that are very successful at it, but NFTs and Bitcoin and Ethereum, whatever it's called, all these things you can actually watch second by second on your own. So does it take out the need for a stockbroker? In some cases, yes. But if you do not know the market, if you are not if you're not walking around, on New York Stock Exchange on the floor, if you're not privy to that, you should talk to a stockbroker because they are very, very active. You cannot replace a stockbroker's experience and their training with an app. So I know when I took the stockbroking list, I had to get a Series 7, the Series 6, 42, 43, Blue Sky Laws. I had so many different certificates I had to get. And when I took the stockbroker test, it was a Series 7. You can only take that test 3 times in your life. You can only take it 3 times in your life. If you don't pass the 3rd time, you're just out of luck. You're never going to be a stockbroker. So I failed it the 1st time. I failed it the 2nd time. The 3rd time around, I passed it. And the law changed when I passed that test and said, if you don't pass it 3 times, you're out. You're just too stupid to sell stocks. And so, and I've got, a business degree. I mean, I'm very, 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 very studious. I'm very, very smart, but I could not pass that silly test. And, but I did. And so that is something that, that education, stocks and bonds, options, there's things that a common person would never know unless they take these classes. So if you're dealing with big money and it's something that's very risky and something very important to you, do not perform open heart surgery on yourself. Go ahead and talk to a stockbroker, because they really do know what's going on. They can't be
I have
replaced.
a buddy who tells me that he used to work for Edward Jones. He told me that managed money is better than unmanaged money or doing it yourself.
True. Yeah,
So,
I mean, there's
I thought about that.
Well, there's wealth managers, and you can take your test to sell annuities. I think you have to take a test to sell annuities, what have you. It's an insurance test. It's not a financial test. If you get a Series 7, that's a financial what have you. But some of these houses, like the Edward Jones and World Financial and stuff, they're very good for people who want to self-direct their IRA. I mean, that's great. But if you want to play the stock market, playing the stock market is different than wealth management or Edward Jones or World Financial. They're actually taking care of your assets and they're managing your assets because you don't. I know my girlfriend last year, she said, "Oh my gosh, Tina, you got all this stuff around. What are you doing with it?" And so she did put a structure to my 401k and my different things. That's structure management. But you want to play the open market. You want to watch, you want to buy, you want to invest in, I don't know, futures, or you want to invest in different things, different stocks or international
Yeah.
markets. This is not where you go to one of these management. It's not. So if you are investing in, maybe some people don't even qualify to invest. I know when I was back in the day, you had to have a $500,000 net worth, and that was
Oh my gosh.
1990.
That's like over $1 million today easily.
Yeah. So I mean, I can go, I get a cold, I can go to the store, I can go buy some oregano oil, and I can, take it myself. Okay. Or I can go to the doctor, and he can say, "Hey, Tina, this is what's going on with you, and this is prescription because you don't have a cold, you got something else."
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
So if you want to go and get some oregano oil, for your for your finances, go to the store, get it. Go to what have you. But if you really have something that's complicated and detailed, you really need to talk to a licensed professional. You cannot self-inflict. You cannot self-manage your stuff without any knowledge. Even the people like Edward Jones, they have to go through many financial classes and many financial tests. They have to pass something that's state structured. And the same thing with loan officers. We have to go through crazy tests. We have some crazy NMLS tests that we have to take.
Yeah.
I know in the banking. Yeah.
When I was going to take my real estate license in Texas, right? So I got it done in as short a time as possible. I got licensed about 3 weeks ago in Dallas. And the school that I went to, great school, right? Lots of curious students, right? But what really it boiled down to was how good of a test taker are you? You could get all the knowledge, but if you aren't great at taking tests, you could not potentially do well. So I went in and I really thought, wow, I really got to study hard. I studied hard and I left the exam. I knew I failed. I was that was one of the hardest tests I feel like I've ever taken. As soon as I hit submit on that, I was like, I gained so much respect for real estate agents in the state of Texas. Because previously I would see some of these people and I would be like, what do they really? Now I'm like, okay, regardless of what I previously thought about them, they passed that test. Good on them.
Yeah.
So I left that exam, Tina, and I knew I failed. The woman hands me my paper. It says passed. I look up at her. I look down at that thing. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm taking this and I'm going home.
That's great. That's time. Well, it's crazy because that real estate test, I know sometimes it's mental. People say, "Oh, it's going to be so hard," and they don't pass it. And then some people say, "Hey, I'm going to get it, and Tuesday I'm going to start showing houses." And so those people get it, But it's something, even with mortgage license people and stockbroker, and real estate, what they should have on the test is ethical or moral testing. I mean, a lot of people get their test and they're so immoral. They're doing all types of crazy stuff. They're shuffling, they're hustling, and a lot of laws are broken.
Yeah.
A lot of clients get hurt. But that test, that's nothing to be fiddled with. I'm glad that you passed the first time around. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you what. So I have a wholesale background, right? And so with wholesaling, there's so much maybe unscrupulous, but you also have a lot of people who, like me, want to understand it from the real estate agent side of things. So I go into this class, Tina, and they're talking about wholesalers not in a favorable light, like borderline criminals, I want to say. And here I am in the class, and they're talking about and they're like, "Do we have any wholesalers in the class?" So I raise my hand, and this woman who's studying to get her broker's license, I didn't know this was going to happen. So I was just happy to be there. This woman says, "You're a wholesaler? What are you doing here?" And I'm looking at her, and I'm all of a sudden realizing, like, oh my gosh, maybe I wasn't supposed to say yes to that question. So I kind of laughed it off, and that was kind of my, again, realization that there's kind of this conflict between wholesalers and real estate agents. But in fairness to both sides, real estate agents are held to a very high ethical standard, definitely in Texas specifically, under the Deceptive Trade Practices Act. And wholesalers as well are not held to that standard. So what ends up happening is you have wholesalers coming to real estate agents saying, "I'm going to buy this property when in actuality, they have no intent to buy the property. They wrote an offer so that they can assign it. And so
Yes.
that's where it
Yes.
becomes tricky because real
Yes.
estate agents cannot do that. You can't just say you're going to buy it if you intend to assign it, whereas wholesalers can. And so a lot of realtors think that, who are these people? Who are these people? But there's a lot of them, and it's only going to get, I think, more and more and more as more people get exposed to it. But I digress here, Tina. Back to mortgage lending. So when you got out, you're in banking from the stockbroker world. Talking about like the Sodom and Gomorrah of the stockbroker world into banking, totally different lifestyle, and not as fiscally rewarding, but definitely lifestyle and well-being. You're feeling much better in that lifestyle. So then eventually you make your way over to getting your license. Describe that process, what that first year was like when you're going from traditional banking into the mortgage world.
Well, it's something because a lot of times when I was in it, banking was ran by women and the men actually had all the titles. So I was the number one loan officer in 5 states of U.S. Bank. That was the entirety of U.S. Bank at that time. And I wasn't making any money. So when somebody came in and said, "Hey, we're looking for a marketing rep," and I was sitting in the second largest branch of U.S. Bank in the state of Washington. I was a sales manager. I had like 5 salespeople underneath me. And, I would just give this lady my declined home equity loans, what have you. And they would take the loan and they would do it in their private market. And so, they asked me, and at that time I had 2 kids and I was like getting to the branch at 7:00 in the morning and doing the vault and, and then leaving at 7:00 at night and undoing the vault or what have you. And, so when they said, "Hey, we have this job position, this is what it pays." My first week I was so stress relieved. And instead of working from 7 in the morning to 7:00 at night, I was working from 9:00 to maybe 4. And I was driving around all day long. And I made more money in the first month than I did in 3 months at working at the bank.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
I was like, take my title, take my whatever, but give me money.
Were you at that point involved in mortgages and prospecting and that field, or was it marketing at this point?
It was marketing. I actually would go to the banks and I would ask them. I gained relationships with the banks, and when they had declined loans they couldn't do, they would refer those people over to us. And so I called on 300 banks. I would go to like Seattle and I would take like the downtown district and I would go to the Chase Banks or Washington Mutuals, on the Bank of America, whatever. And I would actually form relationships with people there and ask them to give me their declines. And so I'd go from there. I would go to Chehalis. I would go to Anacortes. I'd go to Burlington. I would go to Mount Vernon, Everett. I would go everywhere and I would talk to bankers. And so I actually would solicit for the loan. I'd solicit the loan. We'd get the loans and I would refer it over to a loan officer within our system. But I got commission on getting the loans and giving it to our loan officers.
Let's do a deep dive
I want
into
to
that
say,
here. So,
yeah,
you basically are creating your own funnel of other banks' clients, customers who they could not get
yep.
approved on loans. So you saw gold where others didn't see an opportunity. Were these banks shocked that you were coming to them, willing to?
Oh, no. I had worked. One point in time, I had worked for Security Pacific Bank, Seafirst Bank, Bank of, let me see, what is it? Key Bank, Puget Sound Bank, all sitting from the same chair. The banks were like moving around like crazy. They're all consolidating. I knew people in the bank all over the place. I knew regional managers all over the place. I knew bankers all over the place, and people would move and change. So these were all my friends, and banks didn't care. They had Mr. Smith over here crying because he couldn't get a loan, and his wife just had a baby, and they don't know, we don't know what to do with it. So he'd give it to us, and we would do the loan. We were actually heroes. Banks actually cannot do all the loans that are out there. So the people who've got their high risk, bad credit, low down payment or whatever, we would take those loans and turn them into gold. We turn them into loans. And so we saved so many people. And so the bank, they saved Mr. Smith, got them a house, and now their banking relationship actually was strengthened because we weren't a bank. We weren't stealing the client. We were just setting them up for a mortgage, and then they would retain the relationship with the bank. So in other words, we were an extension of the bank, and it was always open arms, always open arms.
Okay, so in
Hmm.
my head, Tina, I'm picturing you guys are really facilitating the dreams of these clients who are getting turned down elsewhere. So in a way, you're really helping people, but also it's business for you. So it's a win-win. You have all these connections with banks all over the country, and then 2008, 2009 happens. So
Hmm.
what happened, and how did that affect? You guys were the main industry affected. How did
Oh
this
yeah, oh
change
yeah.
things?
We would sit there and watch the mortgage implosion that happened. Like every day, we'd watch all the banks close. So a lot of lenders, I want to say 85% of all the lenders left the industry. And I actually
Did your
sat
bank
there.
did your bank get smaller as well, or no?
No, no. So I worked for a small bank called Westside Community Bank.
Hmm.
And I was the only mortgage loan officer there. And I sat in a John L. Scott real estate office in Seattle. It was one of the biggest franchises in Washington State, or in Tacoma, Washington. I'm sorry, the biggest in Washington State. And I sat right from the military base. So I didn't have to do the zero down, 125% loan to values, 2-year fixed rate, 3-year prepay. I didn't have to do those loans. I did VA and FHA. I made more money in 2008, 9, and 10 that I had in 20 years because everybody came to me. Everybody came to
Unbelievable.
me. Yeah, so that's how you change the market. Everybody who walked into our office had fatigues on. They were military. So
Yeah.
I was cranking out VA loans. People didn't have any money to put down. I'd get them a 3.5% city of Lakewood or Tacoma or Washington State grant. I give them into FHA loan. So when everybody was closing down and there were no options, I was the only ice cream shop on the beach. When all the other ice cream shops closed down, I was the only ice cream shop. And so I did a lot of loans. So it's just how you look at it and how you sell.
This is a specific question, I guess, for people dealing with military. I'm imagining you still have to have income requirements, right, for these VA loans, right?
Right,
So if
right.
you're lower enlisted, I'm imagining a lot of these people, based on needing 3 times the mortgage payment and so on and so forth, weren't always qualifying.
Oh
What
no
was
no
the
no 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 no
they
no
were
no
they were
no!
qualifying.
Are you kidding me? Those people in the military have BAH. They get housing allowance. So when they get base pay of
Okay.
like $5,000 a month, they get housing allowance of maybe $3,000 a month. So the military pays if you're active military. So if you're an
Mm.
E1 or an E2 or E3, maybe even a warrant officer, and you're pulling in your Washington State, at that time, they were pulling in, whether depending if they had dependents or not, they were pulling in their rank and how many years they're in the service. They were pulling $1,800 to $2,100 a month in housing. That's on top of their pay. And then there's basic sustenance. And sustenance are anywhere from, at that point, was like $279 to whatever. Now it's more like $400 or $500 a month. So the military, I sat in front of like McChord Air Force Base, and Fort Lewis was also there too. So they made their base pay of whatever it was. Let's say it was $2,800 a month as an
Yeah.
E1. Then they got paid $2,000 for housing. Then they got paid another $300. I never even touched their income. So and I'm so glad you brought that up because a lot of lenders don't know this, and they always tell VA,
Yeah.
you don't make enough money. They don't look at there's COLA, there's cost of living where you're living, and there's all different types of bonus pay if you're married, and so a lot of people don't even know that. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting there,
I
and
didn't know
people,
it.
and so when you get a VA loan, they don't get a pay stub, they get leaves and earnings statement, and it says right there, it says basic pay, then it says housing allowance, then it has sustenance allowance, and a regular person that comes in, it just has pay. So the government pays for BAH depending on where you're at, the county, the city, the state, the rank, all that kind of stuff. So VA was like VA is
So
the number one loan out there.
So for housing allowance, a lot of I'm imagining lower enlisted or really anybody coming in military may not know that they can qualify for a
Oh, they
home right
know.
out of the
Oh no,
gate.
they know. They know.
They do know.
They get taught that, but you
Uh-huh.
have ignorant lenders. When I came here to Colorado, a lot of ignorant lenders would not do VA loan, which is illegal and discriminatory. But
Mm.
E1, E2, E2, E3 was my favorite because they qualified and they will come in there and say, hey, I need my certificate of eligibility. They are trained. And you'll get a lender that says, I don't even know what that is. If you don't have it, when you get it, come back. I pull it up. We can go straight to the VA and we can go to the VA portal. We can pull it up. So the VA, they're taught they have a certificate of eligibility. It's a benefit to them. It's not, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to give you a bonus. It is a benefit When you're fighting for our country, it is a benefit. So you go into the right lender, I get your certificate of eligibility. I find out this and that, how much you qualify for. I tag in your disability. I do everything. But the vets, especially E1, E2, I mean, you have to have 6 months of military service, and that counts for basic, what is it called again? Boot camp.
Yeah.
So a vet, I mean, whereas a lot of lenders out there will stop at 45% debt to income, or maybe 50. VA, I just closed a loan last month. The debt to income ratio was 89%. Okay. So in other words, their income to their debt, over half of your debt. A lot of lenders only half the debt. You can only have half the debt to your income. So I did a VA loan up to here.
So for people who are military, 18 years old, just getting out of high school, and they want to buy a house, right? This is a win-win for them because they're automatically going to qualify as long as they
have
get
6 months
6 months.
They have 6 months, absolutely.
And then if they get deployed, they still get that housing allowance, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, military, they get married. A lot of military get married, and you can have a trailing spouse or a spouse. Let's say your spouse lives there in Washington State or in Dallas. Let's say you've got somebody, a trailing spouse. She can get the loan. He's off to war, or he's in the Gulf, or he's in Kuwait, or something like that. And he or she, and then they can buy the house in Dallas, and the spouse can live there with the kids. Or they're stationed in Fort Bragg or something like that, and they want to buy a house, South Carolina or North Carolina. They want to buy a house there. They're off to war. They can still buy the house. So so many people discriminate against military. I tell you what, people join the military just to get a house. You can in 2 years you can get a house where somebody else wait till he's 27 years old and they graduate from college.
Yeah, that's right.
But do not discriminate against military. Do not, like 19-year-old that came out of boot camp that's an E1 or E2 for a year, he can buy a house. And usually the BAH it goes along with the cost of living in that area. So San Diego's BAH may be different than Dallas, maybe different than Fort Bragg or Tacoma, Washington, Bangor Naval Base. So it depends. So usually the BAH replicates what the housing is for that area. So you can buy a house. So when you're in the military, oh my God, I'd rather go to the military at 19 years old and get a house than wait till I graduate from college 4 years from now with my business degree. Because that military person already has $50,000 worth of equity.
No debt.
So
I'm with
I tell you what, military, if you're a lender not doing VA loans, you've got a problem.
So you carved out this niche, military VA. I can sense the passion. And so from there, you didn't feel the dip and the burn that a lot of people felt with 08, 09. Economy starts recovering. You're doing the VA loans. How does this scale from there? Catch us up to today chronologically?
Well, business as normal. A lot of lenders started offering different programs that combated the non-QM. So non-QM was the market that pulled us all down because people were doing option arms, all this goofy predatory lending stuff. Now non-QM has come back with a fury. Non-QM is extremely well. There's a lot of people who are sole proprietors out there, so you can do bank statement loans. We've got some loans that are called community loans that don't ask for income or assets, like we did back in 2007. So there's a lot of loans out there that weren't here back then. Now, COVID actually is very interesting too. Because of COVID, the way we do loans are different. I can do loans anywhere from my cell phone. I can originate a loan. And there are loans where, like the community loans, there's community lending loans where there's no income, there's no employment. You just have to put 20 or 25% down, depending on your credit score. Those programs did not exist before COVID. We've got programs right now, they're called DSCR loans, debt service cash ratio, where there's no income, there's no employment, there's no tax returns. We don't care. We look at your credit score, we look at the monthly payment, and we look at what you're getting for rent. And as long as the rent is near the mortgage monthly payment, you get the loan. So a lot of investors out there, they're not showing any tax returns or income. We just put not applicable on the employment information. They have 20% to put down, they get that rental property. That loan blossomed out of COVID. Because a lot of at these high interest rates, people are not buying houses. So lenders are sitting there with staff, buildings that they've leased out. They've got expenses, and they're like, "What can we do?" So one of these loans are the DSCR loans that bred out of that. There's also the ITIN loans. It's the individual tax identification number for people who come here that do not have Social Security numbers. However, they do have an IRS number. Those loans are the number one performing loans in the United States. Those loans do not default. And those clients put 20% down, and they do not default. That program was not prolific before COVID. And back in 2008, they didn't have that program. They had it, but it was far few and in between. Now, a lot of the prudent, smart lenders do offer I-10 loans. So the year 2025 is a very exciting year for me because I have been seeing loans since 1990. And there's been no other time in history that you can do the crazy things we're doing now legitimately. Government researched and audited, Federal Reserve audited.
Yeah.
This is the most exciting time. If you want to buy a house, don't sit there and go, oh, the interest rates are 6%. Because, baby, I've seen them at 12%. I've seen them at 10%. And 6% is not bad. So right now, I mean, you get these crazy, these youngins going, and it's like, okay, lose out on the equity. Go ahead, go pay your $3,700 a month in rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles or Seattle and get nothing. Go ahead, do it.
Best time to buy a home was 5 years ago. Next best time is right now.
Is right now. And I tell people, this is why people go into real estate. I don't know how you got in real estate, but people are they're like, oh my gosh, you can make money in real estate. And you get excited. A lot of my realtor friends, they get excited about real estate and they're trying to pass that information on to their clients. It's like, listen, you can buy this house and get equity and your family's happy and your kids are educated. And I mean, all this benefits, your tax write-offs. So for me, the most exciting time in history right now in my years of doing business is today. If you don't get loans because of,
you got to find the Tina Lombard near you.
Yes.
I think that I'm in the business, and I think that there's a lot of people who are not well versed. I mean, in so many of the different, we really spent a lot of time talking about VA, but you mentioned DSCR, you mentioned the I-10, so many different loan types that a lot of people probably are unaware of, and they may come in with this preconception, as I have, and I'm in the space of it's so hard to qualify. But it really does change the game if you are able to find a competent loan officer.
Oh, it's the difference between life and death, basically. It's like, you've got people my age, and we know how to save and buy. You need to buy a house and get the tax write-off. Then you have the younger ones that have access to this. And they think this is all in all. But, there's things like down payment assistance programs in Dallas. I've got several down payment assistance programs in Dallas from Dallas Metro Down Payment Assistance Program. If you don't have a down payment, we can help you get one. When it comes to income, we can tell you what you need. In a lot of places, your income actually can buy housing in your space. So if, let's say that you're an engineer or something like that, and you're getting paid $120,000 a year, for example. Let's say you're getting paid $85,000 a year. There's a house in your community. Because the wages in that community support the community. So if you have income, you need to find out how much you qualify for and buy that house. Don't let down payment get in your way. And let's say some people had hard times and they've got bad credit. Their credit just is really bad. We can help you with credit repair. Back in the day, I couldn't help anybody. I'm like, peace out. I can't. I guess someone's got to co-sign. But now, and I tell people, don't get on the Credit Karmas. Don't get on the freecreditreport.coms. That will cost you 100 points upfront the moment you click on Credit Karma submit. So don't do that. But there's a lot of things that we can do now that loan officers couldn't do before. So if you're working, you got a pulse, buy a house.
Amen. Tina, we are coming up on time here. Where can folks go to get a hold of you?
Well, they can give me a call. My number is 253-332-5986. And that's at Texana Bank. And once again, 253-332-5986. And I have to say my NMLS number, which is 147594. I lend in all 50 states. So in Dallas, in South Carolina, Miami, New York, Washington State, I do a lot of loans, California. So anywhere you live in the United States, I'll be able to take care of you.
Tina, thank you so much for coming on the show, for educating our audience, multiple different loan types. You gave us tremendous value. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.